Good evening, it's 8 o'clock. I'm Sally Baudet, live from Johannesburg. Your top stories this evening. Wildfires along the Garden Route have now claimed 7 lives. The ANC's Integrity Committee wants those implicated in VBS looting to step aside. DA leader Mmusi Maimane misses a deadline to formally apologise to former DA city councillors who threatened to sue him for defamation. And Patricia de Lille says she's heading back to court to clear her name. Let's start in the Southern Cape, and news this evening that the fires along the Garden Route have now claimed 7 lives. We have had this confirmation from the authorities. We're going to be speaking to them in just a few moments for those details. But first, let's focus on the evacuations that are underway as a precautionary measure in parts of George, Wilderness and some adjacent areas inland this evening. Beladi Situsa has those details.
Keep calm, but leave your house. Residents in George are being evacuated as wildfires sweep across mountain ranges in the Southern Cape.
We've had to do precautionary evacuations, and I'd just like to stress that they are precautionary. And those are the areas of Blanco, Stepaside and Fernridge. And the reason for those evacuations, as I said, is to make sure that we are able to get our resources in place and protect those areas, and obviously just have the public moved. So the George public transport system, the Go George bus system, has been used, and we have evacuated the public to the George City Hall.
Denier says for now there's no idea how long the evacuation will last. Authorities are keeping a close eye on the fire as strong winds help it gain momentum.
It's huge. People must work with us, realize that we now enter the fire season. We've moved a lot of resources to this fire, but we also keep a close eye on the Overberg area because that's also a red zone currently, with degrees of in the 40s or even in the 50s, 35s to 40 degrees, and with wind helping the fires on. It's a very dangerous situation.
This is the 7th such fire in just under 2 weeks in the Western Cape.
We're worried about the fire season. It just started, and within the last week and a half, 2 weeks, we had 7 big fires. We've lost over 2,500 informal settlement houses.
Thick smoke is also posing a problem, and residents have been urged to stay indoors with their windows closed. They are also being asked not to spread misinformation and rely on official channels for any emergency updates. Beladi Situsa, Cape Town.
And of course, just a reminder that we have now got confirmation from the police that 7 people have died. 4 of them, we understand, in the Karatara area, which is a small university town inland closer to the Knysna side of the Garden Route. We'll be speaking to police a little bit later in the program as they come through to us. As you can imagine, they do have their hands full in that area this evening. Moving on now, ANC members implicated in the VBS saga won't lose their titles, at least for now. That's according to the ANC's Deputy Secretary General Jesse Duarte, who referred the report to the Integrity Commission. Now, the Commission released a statement this morning that all those implicated must step aside. Elgin St-Pierre reports.
The ANC's Integrity Commission found that the VBS scandal has, quote, seriously damaged the reputation and the credibility of the party, and that those members implicated must step aside.
Can you explain to us what step aside means?
It means that you do not lose your position as a member of a PEC, but you simply don't get involved in public appearances. You stay out of the public arena. You allow yourself the time to defend yourself.
This means Limpopo's treasurer, Danny Msiza, and the provincial deputy chair, Florence Radzelane, will retain those titles. But Radzelane is also mayor of the Vembe district.
We'll have to discuss that as the NEC as well, because step aside would mean stepping aside also from public positions.
But all implicated parties, including Kabelo Matsipe, are crying foul. They say the commission failed to follow its own processes by not summoning them as per the terms of reference, and at least one is refusing to step down.
The Integrity Commission, if it says they must step down, they will step down. That is the organizational matter.
The NEC meets this weekend and will also have the VBS matter on the agenda, and it's evident that a showdown is looming. Aldrin Simpier, Johannesburg.
Latest news now on the demise of retail giant Steinhoff. Local and international law firms have launched a class action suit in a bid to recover billions lost during the scandal. The multinational company's collapse has been described as South Africa's biggest ever corporate fraud. This after the share price plunged by 63% last December. Steinhoff lost at least 187 billion rand. 40 defendants are litigating against current and former directors of Steinhoff, Deloitte and some banks to recoup monies lost. The Hawks are meanwhile waiting for Steinhoff's forensic report, which is due in December, to uncover the money trail. DA leader Mmusi Maimane says he'll see former party councillors in court if they decide to sue him for defamation. He's missed the deadline to make a formal apology to 5 former members of the party who walked out last week in support of Mayor Patricia de Lille. Now, the 5 have accused Maimane of falsely implicating them in corruption. The DA has already withdrawn the initial statement, but that's not enough, say the former members. Maimane had not responded to their deadline of 6 p.m, as far as we know, this evening, to apologise publicly. But this is what he said earlier today.
Well, let me deal with your question. Here is the report. Moments. Let's read that one and then we can discuss the issue afterwards. Ne?
It's only 2,000 pages.
So once we've done that, then we can deal with this issue because we're here to talk about energy. As for the 5, Tess, I will see them in court, those people.
Good.
My lawyers will deal with those people. I don't have time for So we'll deal with that issue.
Meanwhile, it's still not clear whether outgoing Mayor Patricia de Lille will resign from her job, and it seems she's heading back to court.
I'm consulting with my lawyers, so unfortunately I'm going back to court, and my mandate to my lawyers is that I want to go to court before Wednesday to try and review and to set aside this report. So that is where I am. I'm taking one day at a time, because a day in politics is a long time. So if any one of you ask me, are you going to resign on the 31st or are you not going to resign, I'm going to tell you to wait for the 31st, because it's not the 31st. Because my emphasis now is on clearing my name.
Still ahead on eNews, we're going to bring you the latest on the wildfires raging along the Garden Route. We do have information that 7 people have died. And also we'll look at international news, the latest on the Indonesian plane crash that's likely claimed the lives of everyone on board. And money news with Mateo.
Well, the local market recovered on Monday after last week's losses, and the rand also trading in positive territory.
Money News with Mateo. Now, good evening, Mateo. And I believe the Competition Commission has a beef with meat producers. Tell us more.
Definitely. I&J and Current Beef, one of the biggest meat producers in the country, had an agreement between the two of them as early as in the 2000s to say Current Beef would only produce particular types of products like wors, for instance, and beef patties for I&J and no one else. And the fact that they would sell to particular customers that were targeted for I&J. So basically dividing the market between the two of them, and that of course contravenes a section in the Competition Act, because South Africa is an open market and smaller players must also come in and compete with these bigger companies. But when they do this type of cartel behavior, the smaller guy is pushed out, and also prices are fixed for consumers. So in terms of meat, I&J and Current Beef would work out the price of boerewors per kilogram, and that would not be competed against by the other guys, because the two are of course the biggest producers of these products.
So they've not been found guilty yet, but it's taken a further step down the road, is that correct?
Oh no, they've been found guilty. When the Competition Commission takes you to the tribunal, they're sure of their case.
Okay.
In fact, Current Beef has also admitted guilt and paid a fine already of about 2.7 million rand for that fine, and also the Competition Commission saying I&J should be paying 10% of their turnover. Now the problem with this is that they are under AVI, and AVI is a bigger company that had a turnover of about 13 billion rand last year. AVI on its own, I mean, INJ on its own is not big enough, and it's always a slap on the wrist for these type of companies, and you might see this type of behavior coming through as well. I mean, it's been 18 years they've had this agreement, and you can imagine how much money they've made of it.
Yes, and how much consumers have suffered.
Have lost, definitely.
Let's take a look at the markets. How's it looking today?
It was a great recovery today for the markets. The all share up 1%. Industrials were marginal, but financials also taking advantage of the stronger rand, up 2.5%. Mining shares lost their favorability amongst the traders. Gold down more than 3% and platinum up marginally today, but resources as a whole were up 2%. In commodity prices, the price of gold at $1,230 an ounce and platinum up more than 0.5%, with Brent crude keeping low at $77.27 a barrel. The rand stronger today against all three major currencies. Is at 14 rand 54 against the dollar, 16.56 against the euro, and also strong against the pound at 18 rand 60 cents.
Thank you very much, Mateo Kharipe. Let's move on to international news now. President Cyril Ramaphosa has arrived in Germany to attend the G20 Compact with Africa conference. It's a platform for 12 African states and G20 countries to build partnerships. Now, Ramaphosa will deliver the keynote as co-chair of the G20 Africa Advisory Group. The president is also expected to meet his German counterpart, Angela Merkel. In other international news, the South African government has sent condolences to Indonesia after a plane crash that left 189 passengers and crew dead. Lion Air flight JT610 crashed 13 minutes after takeoff. The pilot requested permission to return to the airport before the plane disappeared off the radar. Indonesian search and rescue teams are retrieving bodies from the sea. Officials say it's unlikely there are any survivors. The South African government says there were no South Africans on board. In Brazil, there's been mixed reaction to Jair Bolsonaro's presidential election win. The man who's often called Brazil's Donald Trump won on the promise of eradicating corruption and tackling high crime levels. Bolsonaro's supporters celebrated outside the jail in which former President Luiz Lula da Silva is being held for committing fraud. In Sao Paulo, riot police fired tear gas at anti-Bolsonaro protesters. The former army captain, with very close ties to the military, has alarmed many with pledges to sweep political opponents off the map. He's also made comments denigrating women, gay people and racial minorities. Ahead, we're going to be heading to the weather centre to find out if rain is going to quench the fires along the Garden Route. Candice will have all our details. She'll be with us in just a few moments, and we'll go to Australia to find out about an endangered kangaroo that's ready to meet the world. Before we go to weather, I just want to update you on our top story of the evening and the shocking news that 7 people have now been confirmed dead in the wildfires that are spreading along the Garden Route area. We do know that some rain has fallen in the area, but we also know that a number of areas are being affected and precautionary evacuations have been taking place in George, certain parts of Wilderness, and also we hear this evening in the small inland town of Karatara. Now, Karatara is closer to Knysna, and we hear that 4 people were confirmed dead there just a little earlier this evening. Tragically, 3 of them were infants. We do not know the circumstances around that, but we have been told by fire authorities that they died as a result of the fire, and news just a little while ago that 3 more people have died. We're not sure of the area. Unfortunately, that brings the death toll in these fires to 7. Now, we have heard that rain has fallen, but we also know that if the winds pick up, these fires very easily can get out of control. So let's get the very latest from Candice McKechnie. She's down in our weather centre in Cape Town. Candice, is the rain that has been reported to have been falling, is it going to quench these fires?
Hi, good evening, Sally. Well, you know, it was just a little bit of rain that moved through. We saw a few light thunder showers moving through, and that's part of that same system that resulted in the hot and dry weather over that part of South Africa. But of course, more rain is on its way with the cold front. It's not going to put the fires out, but it is going to help stop spread the fires in those conditions. However, there's another thing that comes with this, in that we are expecting very windy conditions. In fact, behind the cold front, we'll see a change in that wind direction, with westerly to southwesterly winds gusting along the western and even eastern Cape coastline. So we'll see that moving in overnight as well as into Tuesday, and those gale force winds eventually spread through to KwaZulu-Natal by Tuesday night. We are expecting cooler temperatures over the southern part of South Africa, so also helping with reducing the favourable conditions for the spread and development of fires, and of course that rainfall overnight as well as into Tuesday. We're also expecting a few thunder showers to form over the northeastern part of South Africa, with a hot day in store. In the Northern Cape, cooler temperatures are forecast in the west, with the possibility of rain still on Tuesday. You'll see maximums in the middle and upper 20s for the rest of the province, with a bit of cloud overhead. In the Western Cape, we're expecting a much cooler day on Tuesday, 19 degrees for Cape Town, 18 for George, and you'll see the possibility of rainfall, especially over the southern part of the province. Cooler temperatures move in over Port Elizabeth at 20, still warm over the Eastern Cape interior, with a few thunder showers over the far northeastern parts, sizzling hot throughout KwaZulu-Natal, especially in the morning over the southern parts, but that temperature will drop very rapidly as the wind changes in Pietermaritzburg. But first, a high of 38 degrees, and there's also a watch for the possibility of severe thunderstorms over the interior. Hot with isolated thunder showers as we head towards Mpumalanga Highveld. A mostly clear day for Skukuza at a toasty 38. You'll also see hot weather and dry conditions throughout Limpopo, with highs mainly in the middle and upper 30s. That hot weather also extends all the way through to northwest, with a few thunder showers for Klerksdorp, Ventersdorp and Potchefstroom, and we're expecting thunder showers for much of the Free State, except over the western part of the province. Sizzling hot for Gauteng on Tuesday, 36 degrees for Pretoria. Johannesburg topping 33, with thunder showers mainly over the southern part of Gauteng. Now, as we head into Wednesday, you'll see the cloudy, cool and wet weather settling in over KwaZulu-Natal. Thunder showers remain in the forecast over the northeastern part of the country, and light rain also remains from George all the way through to East London, right the way through to Thursday. In fact, very little change to the weather as we head into Thursday, but with cooler temperatures in the forecast in the northeast. That's all from the Weather Centre for now. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Thank you very much, Candice McKechnie. And finally, waking up and facing the world every day is a daunting task, especially on a Monday. But there's wonder around every corner if you open your eyes, particularly so if you are a rare and incredibly cute kangaroo who's just 8 months old. The Goodfellows tree kangaroo has begun emerging from his mother's pouch at the Healesville Sanctuary in Victoria, Australia. His name is Kofi, and he's the first of his kind to be born at the sanctuary. This endangered species of kangaroo has adapted to life in the treetops of forests in Papua New Guinea. Let's recap your top stories. Wildfires on the Garden Route have now claimed 7 lives. There are evacuations as a precautionary measure, but authorities are urging people not to panic. The ANC's Integrity Committee wants those implicated in VBS looting to step aside. And DA leader Mmusi Maimane misses the deadline to formally apologise to former DA city councillors who've threatened to sue him for defamation. And Patricia de Lille says she's heading back to court to clear her name. From me and the team, it's a very good night.